President Chen led the Valtherian delegation through the White House, Xerax's massive frame dwarfing the Secret Service agents who maintained professional composure despite the alien presence. His exoskeleton scraped against doorframes designed for human dimensions. "Your architecture is insufficient," Xerax noted, ducking beneath a chandelier. "We find it suits our needs," Chen replied with that same infuriating smile, "though we're happy to provide more appropriately sized accommodations at your embassy." The delegation entered the cabinet room, where holographic displays showed Earth's modest defense systems, resource outputs, and population centers. A calculated show of transparency Xerax found suspicious. Species encountering the Dominion typically demonstrated either pathetic displays of military might or desperate attempts at concealment. "You seem unconcerned about revealing strategic information," Xerax said, mandibles clicking in what his species recognized as amusement. Secretary of Defense Jackson leaned forward. "Commander, we understand the Valtherian Dominion has subjugated 17 worlds and maintains resource extraction agreements with 43 others. Your battle fleet currently in Earth orbit could reduce our major cities to ash within hours. Pretending otherwise would waste both our time." Xerax's sensory ridge pulsed purple with surprise. Their intelligence was uncomfortably accurate. "Then you understand your position in the new arrangement," he recovered, voice modulator projecting authority. "Category 7 Protectorate status will be beneficial for your species. The Dominion provides security, technological guidance, and inclusion in galactic trade networks in exchange for reasonable resource allocations." Chen passed him a tablet displaying Earth's counter-proposal. "We've taken the liberty of drafting alternative terms. You'll find them more mutually advantageous." Xerax's translator struggled with the document's nuanced language. These humans weren't negotiating as inferiors, but as equals. Their proposal included technology exchanges, scientific collaboration, and notably absent any mention of resource tribute. "Unacceptable," Sub-Commander Vex hissed. "You misunderstand your place in the galactic order." "Do we?" Chen asked mildly. "Commander Xerax, would you join me briefly? There's something I'd like to show you alone." Against protocol, Xerax followed her into a smaller room where a single display showed footage from the rescue of the Valtherian science vessel Empirical near Proxima Centauri, an incident that had occurred just 3 weeks ago, thousands of light years from Earth. "How did you obtain this?" Xerax demanded, secondary heart accelerating. "We've been watching the stars for longer than you might imagine," Chen said, voice softening. "Your people were in distress. Ours were nearby. They assisted without revealing themselves." The footage showed 6 humans in unmarked ships retrieving Valtherian survivors from a radiation storm, administering medical aid, then vanishing before the Dominion rescue fleet arrived, an incident officially attributed to a passing Arcturan merchant vessel. "We could have introduced ourselves then," Chen continued, "but we preferred to understand the Dominion better first. Your actions toward other species, particularly those you deemed weak, were informative." For the first time in his 40-year military career, Commander Xerax experienced a sensation unfamiliar to Valtherians. Uncertainty. The implications were staggering. These fragile beings hadn't just been waiting for first contact. They'd been observing, evaluating, and apparently moving undetected through space, the Dominion considered secure. Chen's communicator chimed. "It appears your delegation is growing restless, Commander. Shall we rejoin them? I believe we have much to discuss about our species' future relationship." Maya Rodriguez watched Dr. Krelvor's secondary appendages flutter in agitation as he reviewed her test results for the 3rd time. "These readings contradict established cynobiological parameters," he muttered. "Your musculature should have failed under that load." Maya toweled sweat from her neck. The Valtherians had just subjected her to 4 hours of increasingly difficult physical tests, each designed to identify breaking points. They'd yet to find one. "Different evolutionary pressures," she explained, draining another electrolyte pouch. "You evolve for burst strength. We evolved for persistence. Krelvor wasn't listening. He was too busy adjusting sensors that clearly must be malfunctioning. Behind the observation glass, Admiral Thrax conferred with his science team. Mandibles clicking in what Maya had learned indicated annoyance. The specimen continues performing beyond projected capability limits, a technician reported. Irrelevant. Thrax dismissed. Their society shows no evidence of competitive advantage. No unified planetary government, fragmented military response protocols, inefficient resource distribution. Their endurance is a curiosity. Nothing more. Maya smiled slightly. The Valtherians consistently measured the wrong things, viewing all species through their hierarchical, dominance-oriented perspective. They couldn't comprehend a strength that didn't translate to immediate tactical advantage. After the examination, Maya was escorted to temporary quarters aboard the Dominion vessel. Her room was clearly designed for Galtherian proportions, the ceiling unnecessarily high, the sleeping platform too large. The surveillance devices, however, were disappointingly obvious. She activated her subdermal communicator once alone. Rodriguez checking in. They've completed their physical assessments. Findings. President Chen's voice replied through the bone conduction implant, undetectable to Valtherian scanners. They're fixated on our physical weaknesses. Their entire metric system values immediate force projection over sustainability, just as intelligence predicted. Perfect, Chen responded. Continue allowing them to underestimate us. Admiral Thrax has scheduled your cognitive evaluation for tomorrow. Maya smiled. Looking forward to it. Meanwhile, Commander Xerax found himself in the ship's cultural repository, reviewing Earth historical records. What he found disturbed him. Human warfare evolved differently from the ritualized, strength-based combat of most species, where Valtherians and their conquered subjects focused on overwhelming force. Humans developed unnerving specializations in asymmetric warfare, guerrilla tactics, and most troublingly, psychological operations. Their history contained countless examples of numerically or technologically inferior human forces defeating superior ones through persistence, adaptation, and simply outlasting their opponent's will to continue fighting. Commander, his aide interrupted. Admiral Thrax requests your presence for the classification decision. The command deck buzzed with activity as holographic representations of Earth's resources, population centers, and primitive defense systems rotated above the strategic table. The assessment is complete, Thrax announced as Xerax entered. Earth will be designated Category 7, Pre-Sapient Protected Resource World. Xerax's sensory ridge pulsed with concern. Admiral, I've been reviewing their historical. Your fascination with primitive cultures is noted, Commander, Thrax interrupted. But the data is conclusive. They present no meaningful resistance capabilities. As if on cue, alerts blared throughout the ship. Security protocols engage, locking down sensitive areas. Report, Thrax demanded. Sir, the security chief responded. The human test subject has accessed our environmental controls from her quarters. Temperature, gravity, and atmospheric composition in all non-critical areas have been adjusted to human optimal conditions. Impossible, Krelvor sputtered. Their technological comprehension is decades behind ours. On the monitor, Maya Rodriguez sat cross-legged on her sleeping platform, eyes closed in apparent meditation, while Valtherian crew members throughout the ship struggled to adjust to the suddenly human-friendly environment. Should I restore systems, Admiral? The security chief asked. Thrax's scales darkened with rage. No. Let's see how our guest enjoys the next phase of her assessment. Captain Lai Wei pressed her radiation-scarred palm against the scanner for the third time, Valtherian medical technology struggling to recognize her damaged tissue patterns. The burns covering 40% of her body wept clear fluid through temporary skin grafts. 2 of her team remained in critical condition aboard the Earth vessel Tenacity *. Please remain still, instructed the medical technician. Voice modulator adjusted to a gentler tone than standard Valtherian speech. Your cellular deterioration exceeds our reference parameters. Just patch me up enough to report to Commander Xerax, Lai Wei replied. The translator rendered her strained voice flat and emotionless, missing the determination beneath. In the adjoining chamber, Valtherian scientists huddled around displays showing biological scans of the human rescue team. The readings prompted heated debate. These radiation levels should have caused immediate systemic collapse, argued senior biologist Terax, pointing at tissue samples. Yet they maintained consciousness and coordinated action for 17 hours. It defies established cynobiological principles. Their DNA repair mechanisms show unusual efficiency, noted another scientist, and observed these unusual proteins in their bloodstream, artificial compounds designed to mitigate radiation damage. Commander Xerax entered silently, watching the scientists puzzle over human physiology. They prepared, he stated. They knew the risks and chemically augmented themselves before attempting rescue. Intentional cellular sacrifice for strangers of another species is irrational, Terax insisted. Xerax gestured toward the medical bay where Lai Wei now stood, wavering slightly but refusing offered support. Is it? Ask her yourself. Terax approached the human captain, sensory appendages extended. Your actions have permanently damaged your genetic structure. Reproductive viability is now compromised. Terminal cellular cascade will commence within 20 standard years. Why undertake such biological sacrifice for non-kin? Lai Wei looked genuinely confused by the question. Your people were in danger. We had the capacity to help. But at catastrophic personal cost, Terax pressed. Cost is relative, she replied. 20 years is better than none. Your scientists had no years left at all. From the observation deck above, Admiral Thrax watched the exchange with growing unease. The human rescue had created a problematic situation. By Dominion law, such a sacrifice created a life debt that superseded standard hierarchical protocols. These humans, classified as barely sapient, had placed the Dominion's finest xenobiologists in their debt. The human delegation has requested a formal commendation ceremony, reported his aide. Denied. Thrax snapped. This incident will be classified. No official acknowledgement. Meanwhile, Earth News Networks broadcast footage of the rescue operation across human territories. The Valtherian station, bathed in deadly radiation. The human team, moving through corridors where their radiation badges turned black almost immediately. The Valtherian scientists, some unconscious, being carried to safety by beings half their size. The broadcast reached settlements throughout the solar system, including the Mars colony where Dr. Eliza Chen, the president's younger sister and leading xenobiologist, watched with clinical interest. Record-complete biological readings from the rescue team. She instructed her staff. I want to understand exactly how our physiology responds to Valtherian technology. Her assistant nodded toward the screen where Captain Lai Wei was being evacuated, skin blistering visibly. They're calling them heroes. They are, Dr. Chen agreed. And test subjects. In war and diplomacy, these are often the same thing. Aboard the Valtherian command ship, Xerax received a private message from an anonymous source within the human government. It contained a single file. Historical records of human first responders throughout their history, rushing into burning buildings, radiation zones, plague-ridden areas, all to save strangers, often at the cost of their own lives. The message contained a simple note. This is not exceptional behavior for our species. This is standard protocol. Xerax traced his claw over the ancient skull, a Homo erectus specimen nearly 2 million years old. The museum curator, Dr. Patel, stood nearby, watching his fascination with amusement. Your ancestors were even weaker than modern humans, Xerax observed. These dental structures could barely process tough vegetation, let alone deter predators. We weren't apex predators, Dr. Patel agreed. We were persistence hunters. These leg bones tell the real story, the ability to pursue prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Xerax bent closer to examine the fossilized femur. Unlike Valtherian evolutionary history, a straight line of increasingly dominant apex predators, human evolution revealed a strange, meandering path of adaptation and survival against superior forces. Your current conflict with the Meritak horde, Xyrax ventured. Your species has sustained heavy losses defending your Proxima Centauri colonies. Dr. Patel's expression remained neutral. The Meritak information is classified. Where did you hear about that conflict, Commander? Xyrax's sensory ridge pulsed with satisfaction. The curator's non-denial confirmed his suspicions. Humanity wasn't as planet-bound as they pretended. They had already established extrasolar colonies and were engaged in conflicts the Dominion knew nothing about. Admiral Thrax believes your species incapable of faster-than-light travel, Xyrax stated, yet clearly. A distant rumble interrupted him as massive shadows fell across the museum skylights. Thrax's military demonstration had begun, Valtherian warships hovering over major population centers worldwide. Dr. Patel glanced upward, then checked her communication device. Your Admiral's psychological operation. Right on schedule. Outside the museum, streams of humans continued their daily activities beneath the enormous vessels. Children pointed upward with brief interest before returning to their games. Vendors sold alien-themed snacks. One entrepreneur had already set up a booth offering authentic Valtherian souvenirs. Xyrax's communications unit chimed with an incoming transmission from Thrax. The demonstration is failing to achieve sufficient psychological impact, the Admiral hissed. Their primitive news networks are treating our battle fleet as a tourist attraction. Perhaps they don't recognize the threat, Xyrax suggested carefully. Then we shall clarify, Thrax replied. I've authorized weapons demonstrations over uninhabited areas. Prepare to observe. Dr. Patel's device pinged simultaneously. She reviewed it calmly. Your Admiral is planning weapons demonstrations over our polar regions and deserts. Our environmental monitoring teams have been notified to collect data on your weapons capabilities. Xyrax stared at her in disbelief. You were informed of a classified military operation before it was executed. She smiled thinly. Commander, please don't insult our intelligence capabilities. We've been monitoring your communication protocols since your fleet entered our system. Primitive as we may seem, encryption is a human specialty. Meanwhile, in orbit, Admiral Thrax reviewed tactical displays with growing frustration. The human reaction to their show of force was being broadcast throughout the fleet. Crowds gathering to watch, cameras recording, scientific instruments measuring every aspect of Valtherian technology. They're studying us, his tactical officer noted with unease. Irrelevant. Thrax dismissed. Commence weapons demonstrations. As the order transmitted, human satellites imperceptibly adjusted their orbits, positioning to capture every detail of Valtherian weaponry in action. In the Oval Office, President Chen watched multiple feeds simultaneously. Are the collection arrays in position? Her military advisor nodded. Yes, Madam President. We'll have complete performance metrics on their weapon systems within the hour. Perfect, Chen replied. And Xyrax, still at the museum with Dr. Patel. He's asking all the right questions. Chen smiled. Then our strategy is working. Let's proceed to the next phase. Amir Hassan adjusted his lightweight exoskeleton suit, designed not to enhance strength like Valtherian models, but to monitor vital signs and provide targeted hydration and electrolyte replacement. Day 3 of the Krevtal had taken them into the scorching heart of the Simpson Desert, temperatures soaring past 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Half a mile ahead, Gronx's massive form wavered in the heat mirage. The Valtherian champion had abandoned his ceremonial armor after day 1, his scales now coated in reflective gel. Each of his footsteps sank deep into the sand, requiring tremendous energy to extract. Amir maintained his steady pace, the same rhythmic cadence he'd held for 217 miles. His augmented reality display showed Gronx's vital signs deteriorating rapidly. Valtherian biology, evolved on a temperate world with regular periods of rest, wasn't designed for this sustained effort in extreme heat. Hassan crackled his earpiece. Environmental satellites show a dust storm approaching your position from the southwest. ETA 90 minutes. Acknowledged, Amir replied, his voice raspy from sand and dehydration. On the Valtharian command ship, Admiral Thrax watched the Krevtal with growing alarm. The monitoring cameras showed Gronx's previously confident stride reduced to a staggering lurch. "This is unacceptable," Thrax growled. "The human deliberately chose this environment to exploit our biological limitations. That is the purpose of selecting the challenge venue," Zyrax reminded him. "The ancient texts state, each species shall test the other in the crucible that best reveals true strength. Initiate extraction of our champion," Thrax ordered. "This contest is invalid." The juridical officer's sensory appendages flattened against his skull. "Admiral, by sacred law, extraction without completion forfeits the challenge. The consequences." "I'm aware of the consequences," Thrax snapped. "Prepare a statement declaring the human utilized unfair biological advantages." Below, Gronx collapsed onto the baking sand. Amir reached him minutes later, kneeling beside the fallen champion. The Valtharian's scales had dulled from dehydration, his tertiary heart beating erratically. Instead of passing his fallen competitor, Amir activated his emergency beacon and began administering cooling measures from his medical kit. He unfolded a thermal shade and positioned it over Gronx's massive form. "What is the human doing?" Thrax demanded. "Saving Gronx's life." Zyrax responded quietly. "He's forfeiting his time advantage to render medical aid." The human medical team arrived via hover transport, quickly stabilizing the Valtharian champion. As they prepared to extract Gronx, Amir stood unsteadily. "Is the challenge invalidated?" he asked the Valtharian official who had accompanied the medical team. "No," the official replied. "You may continue if you wish. Your opponent has been incapacitated." Amir nodded and resumed his steady pace across the desert. The ARG display in his helmet flickered with an incoming message from President Chen. "Well done. Extraction wasn't necessary, but the optics are excellent." "Not about optics," Amir muttered. "No race is worth a life." In the command ship's medical bay, Gronx regained consciousness, his massive frame diminished by defeat. Commander Zyrax stood beside his recovery pod. "You were defeated with honor," Zyrax said, following traditional protocol. Gronx's eyes narrowed. "The human could have let me die. Victory would have been assured." Yet he stopped. "Because humans are weak," Thrax interjected, entering the medical bay. "Sentimental, unwilling to seize advantages. Or because," Zyrax suggested carefully, "their understanding of strength differs from ours. Perhaps they view preservation of life, even in enemies, as its own form of victory." Meanwhile, environmental sensors detected Amir continuing through the gathering dust storm, his pace unwavering despite visibility dropping to mere feet. His vital signs showed extreme stress, yet his forward progress remained constant, a solitary figure pushing relentlessly through one of Earth's most hostile environments. In Geneva, the United Earth Council convened an emergency session. Minister O'Cake's announcement was brief. "The Kreftel proceeds as expected. Prepare for Phase 6. The Dominion Council chamber fell silent as Zyrax's presentation concluded. The holographic display showed thermal imaging of Amir Hassan completing the Kreftel, his body temperature dangerously elevated yet his neural patterns showing remarkable coherence. "This single human's victory invalidates our entire classification system," Elder Zyrax finally stated, breaking the silence. "If their endurance exceeds our champions, how can they be considered inferior?" Admiral Thrax rose, scales flushed with anger. "One statistical outlier does not redefine a species. This Hassan was clearly genetically enhanced." "He wasn't," Zyrax interrupted, displaying medical scans. "Genetic sequencing confirms standard human physiology. What he accomplished, millions of them could potentially do." The implications rippled through the chamber. A species previously categorized as barely notable was suddenly revealed as possessing capabilities that directly countered Valtherian advantages. "There's more," Xyrax continued, activating a secure data node. "Our intelligence units have intercepted communications suggesting widespread human presence beyond their solar system." The display shifted to show evidence of camouflaged outposts on 11 worlds, small settlements designed to be invisible to standard Dominion scans. On 3 planets, these outposts were within 50 kilometers of Valtherian mining operations, completely undetected. Counselor Vex's sensory appendages flattened against her skull. If this is accurate, they'd violated territorial boundaries established under Dominion law. Laws they never agreed to, Xyrax pointed out. Laws they likely studied and deliberately circumvented. The chamber erupted in overlapping arguments until Elder Syrinx raised her ceremonial staff. "The question before us is clear. Have we fundamentally misunderstood this species and the threat they represent?" On the central display, surveillance footage showed humans throughout Earth continuing normal activities beneath Valtherian warships. A child's birthday party proceeded in a park directly under a dreadnought's weapon array. University classes continued uninterrupted. Traffic flowed around temporary Valtherian checkpoints with minimal disruption. "They show no fear," Syrinx observed. "Even our most aggressive displays produce no panic." "Because they've been studying our patterns," Xyrax explained. "They understand Valtherian psychology better than we understand theirs." "Speculation," Thrax dismissed. "Humans are simply too primitive to recognize superior force." Alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. Security protocols engaged automatically, sealing the council chamber. "Report," Thrax demanded. The security chief's voice came through ship-wide communications. "Unknown devices have materialized in secured areas throughout the fleet. Containment protocols activated." The main display shifted to security footage, showing small mechanical objects. Simple timers attached to containers of colored powder, appearing simultaneously in weapons bays, engine rooms, and command centers across 73 Valtherian vessels. "Impossible," Counselor Vex whispered. "Our shields are impenetrable." Analysis confirmed the devices were harmless, the powder merely a dense pigment, but the message was unmistakable. Had these been explosive devices, the entire Valtherian fleet could have been crippled in seconds. In the ensuing chaos, Xyrax received a private communication from President Chen. The message contained only coordinates and a time. An invitation. Meanwhile, in a secure facility beneath the Antarctic ice shelf, Dr. Eliza Chen monitored the successful deployment of the quantum displacement devices. Her team had worked for decades to perfect this technology. Devices that could bypass conventional matter barriers through quantum tunneling. "Phase 6 complete," she reported. "Demonstration successful." Her brother, Defense Minister James Chen, nodded with satisfaction. "And what did we learn?" "Their emergency containment protocols have a 7-second delay. Exploitable." She studied the Valtherian biosignatures on her display. Their physiological stress responses indicate extreme shock. They truly believed their vessels were impregnable. "And now," Dr. Chen smiled thinly, "now they know the truth. The question is whether they're wise enough to understand its implications." Xyrax's shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere without escort, following the coordinates President Chen had provided. The Nevada landscape below appeared barren and unremarkable, a perfect camouflage for whatever lay beneath. His decision to come alone had nearly triggered a mutiny among Thrax's loyalists. "They will dissect you for biological intelligence," the Admiral had warned. But after the quantum displacement demonstration, Xyrax understood that if humans intended harm, no security detail would make a difference. The shuttle's sensors detected nothing unusual until it passed through a shimmering mirage, a holographic camouflage field concealing a massive installation spanning several square kilometers. Landing pads materialized, guiding his craft down. President Chen waited alone on the platform, wearing a simple gray uniform without insignia or ceremonial markings, starkly different from the elaborate display of rank typical in Valtherian hierarchy. "Commander Xerax," she greeted him. "Thank you for trusting us. After your demonstration, trust seems the only rational response," he replied. The facility doors opened to reveal not military personnel but scientists of various disciplines, working alongside engineers at stations displaying technologies unfamiliar even to Xerax's experienced eye. "This is the North American Joint Research Facility," Chen explained as they walked. "One of 17 similar installations globally. What you're about to see has remained classified, not just from your species, but from most of humanity. They passed through security barriers that scanned on quantum levels, technology the Dominion had theorized but never successfully implemented. In a central chamber, dozens of propulsion systems in various stages of development hung suspended in gravitational fields. These drive systems exceed Valtherian capabilities by approximately 30% in efficiency," Chen noted. "Your maximum sustainable velocity is 0.47 light-years per day. Ours is 0.61. Xerax's sensory ridge pulsed with shock. "The Dominion believes your fastest ships barely achieve interplanetary travel." "We know," Chen replied with a slight smile. "We've been reviewing your intelligence assessments of Earth for some time. Your encryption was instructive." They continued to a medical research wing, where Valtherian genetic material was being analyzed alongside samples from 17 other species, including 4 Xerax didn't recognize. "These races," he inquired, indicating the unknown samples. "Beyond what you call the Outer Rim," Chen explained. "We've maintained observation outposts in 37 star systems beyond Dominion-controlled space." The implications staggered him. The Dominion considered itself the unchallenged authority in this quadrant, yet humans had apparently been silently exploring far beyond established boundaries. "Why reveal this now?" Xerax asked as they entered a holographic chamber displaying a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Glowing points indicated human outposts, hundreds of them, extending in all directions. "Because concealment has served its purpose," Chen replied. "We needed to understand the galaxy's political landscape before revealing our capabilities. The Dominion's history of subjugating lesser species made caution necessary." The holographic display shifted to show footage from a conflict Xerax didn't recognize, sleek human vessels engaging with crystalline ships of unknown design. "The Maritak Horde," Chen explained. "We've been containing their expansion for 3 years. They've attacked 7 of our colonial outposts. Alone, without assistance." Xerax's voice betrayed his disbelief. "The Maritak were rumored to exist beyond known space, a theoretical threat the Dominion's strategic planners considered a worst-case scenario." "We've managed," Chen replied simply. "But we believe cooperation would benefit both our species. The Horde is expanding, and eventually they'll reach Dominion space." The unspoken message was clear. Humans had been fighting a war against a superior enemy, while simultaneously infiltrating Valtherian space, developing advanced technology, and maintaining the appearance of a primitive species. "Admiral Thrax will never accept this reality," Xerax stated. President Chen's expression hardened. "That's why we're speaking with you, Commander, not him. The Dominion faces a choice: adaptation or obsolescence." Luna Base gleamed against the stark lunar landscape, its crystalline domes and carbon composite towers representing the first jointly constructed human Valtherian facility. 6 months had transformed the political landscape entirely. Inside the central chamber, representatives from both species finalized the Mutual Defense and Scientific Exchange Treaty. Xerax, now bearing the ceremonial markings of Dominion Ambassador, stood beside President Chen as their respective delegations reviewed the final provisions. Admiral Thrax and his supporters had attempted a military coup against the Dominion Council after the initial treaty negotiations began. The rebellion lasted precisely 6 hours before Valtherian commanders loyal to the Council, and influenced by Xerax's evidence of human capabilities, secured control of the fleet. "The Maritak Horde has increased activity along the Perseus boundary," reported General Williams. humanity's military liaison. The holographic display showed crystalline ships massing near a disputed sector. Their new high ships can produce fighter craft at 3 times previous rates. Elder Cyric studied the tactical projections. The combined Valtherian human defense grid will be operational within 14 standard days, sufficient to establish a containment perimeter. Containment isn't enough, President Chen stated. The latest intelligence suggests they're adapting to our defensive measures. We need a more permanent solution. The diplomatic achievement that had brought former adversaries together against a common threat was remarkable, but tensions still occasionally surfaced. Some Valtherian officials couldn't entirely abandon their species' hierarchical instincts, while certain human representatives remained wary after decades of preparation for potential Valtherian aggression. After the formal session concluded, Xerax and Chen walked along Luna Base's observation deck, Earth hanging against the black void above them. The integration programs are exceeding expectations, Xerax noted. Valtherian engineering combined with human innovation has produced results neither of our species could have achieved alone. That's what we'd hoped, Chen replied. Though not all the adaptation has been technological. Xerax understood her meaning. Throughout Dominion territories, the revelation of human capabilities had triggered profound cultural reassessment. Species previously deemed inferior were being reevaluated. Valtherian educational systems now included modules on diverse evolutionary advantages beyond traditional metrics of strength and dominance. The rescue team has departed for the Proxima Centauri conflict zone, Xerax said, changing subjects. An interesting tactical decision, sending a mixed species response force. The view screen showed the mission profile. A joint team of humans and Valtherians deployed to extract colonists from a planet under Maritac siege. The mission parameters played to each species' strengths. Valtherians handling direct combat and heavy lifting, humans managing extended operations and infiltration. The Maritac have never encountered our species working in tandem, Chen explained. Their tactical algorithms won't have contingencies for our combined capabilities. A communication alert drew their attention. The Lunar Observatory had detected unusual stellar phenomena at the galaxy's edge, energy signatures matching neither known species. It seems, Xerax observed, that the universe contains more surprises for both our kinds. Chen's expression remained thoughtful. The Dominion believed itself the pinnacle of evolution until meeting humans. We believed ourselves alone until meeting you. Perhaps true strength lies in recognizing our assumptions will always be incomplete. Far beyond Luna Base, the joint rescue mission entered Proxima Centauri space. Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez and Subcommander Krelvor prepared their team for deployment. Former test subject and examiner now served as equals, their once perceived differences transformed into complementary assets. Ready for extended operations? Krelvor asked, knowing the mission might last weeks under hostile conditions. Rodriguez checked her equipment with practiced efficiency. That's what humans do best. We endure.